I, it's so funny. I picked that song. I was thinking about Unity of Manhattan, and I remember the decision that you guys had to move into this space, but a year and a half ago, and there's been some times where maybe this is it 2.5? Oh my gosh! Wow! And we've certainly spent some time worrying about maybe how things are going to work out. And here we are, 2.5 years later, and we've not had to pack up after church in that long. Isn't that great? Amen? All right. Well, today, I'm pretending to be a policeman here. I was eating a donut earlier, but anyway. Today I was talking about belief and faith because this is the Christian season of Advent, and it starts normally the last Sunday of November, and it goes up through Christmas, and we focus on, do we want to light the candles? We could light the candles as we're talking about it. Yeah, here we go. We have to get a new platform assistant here. So we start out with the property of faith. And we acknowledge that the Christ presence of faith is part of the spiritual qualities of Christianity. And then we focus on peace, the peace of the Christ that is a part of the message of Christianity. It's also the message of every religion in the world. There's always an element of peace in every religion in the world. We focus on love, the love of the Christ, and the love of God to give of his most beloved treasure, his Son, to come down and redeem humanity, as our heritage teaches us. And then there's also joy, and the joy of the eventual arrival of the Christ and the spirit of Advent. And Advent is a Latin derivative of the coming of the Messiah. So we're in this season of Advent, and believe it or not, the Christian season of Christmas actually officially ends in February. That's when St. Peter's Basilica in Rome actually removes the manger scene. So it's a process of Christianity. In this season of Advent, we focus on these four qualities of what it is to have that Christian faith, or to live that Christian faith. And of course it all culminates in Christmas, and I just have to ask, what do you get for Christmas?
The shoes.
Okay, we got some shoes. Anybody else want to share what they got for Christmas? Oh man, that's a story in my house. I remember one year my wife and we were so broke, and the only thing I could afford was a crock pot, and I bought her a crock pot, and she never let me hear the end of that one. You got me a crock pot for Christmas? I'm glad to know someone appreciates those qualities of crock potting. So, anybody else want to share? Wow, that's awesome. Awesome. One more. Anybody else? The Adele CD. I want to get the clicker here for a minute. Well, I'll share with you what I got. I actually got a music stand. I had this really cool music stand that was lost somewhere in my travels in one of my gigs. And not only did I have one, but my son actually had the same one. And we could not find either one of them. And all we could think was, and to be honest with you, I really think what happened was my son took it over to one of his friend's house, and it never came back. That's probably what happened to it, because I can't imagine both of them being missing. But anyway, so son, if you're listening, which I know you're probably not, I'm going to blame you anyway. But I got a music stand with a light, and it's a special one that it collapses down really nice. The most special gift I got, though, from my wife was my stepfather a year and a half ago, actually, 2 years ago, oh my gosh, almost 2.5 years ago, September of 13, passed away, and he was my hero. He was great presence in my life, and he was a retired Navy man, and so my wife had taken his chief hat and all of his ribbons and his medals, and she put them in a display case to where they were prominently displayed, and more of just a memorial for him. It was he was a great human being, a great individual. Not only did he retire from the Navy, he also retired from 20 years of teaching. And that was probably one of the most special gifts that I've ever received in my life, and because I just love my stepfather so much. He was a great presence in my life. And of course, I'm officially a dad because I got a wallet for Christmas. But it was a monogram wallet, which is pretty cool. But I was thinking about the different Christmas gifts that we might receive, and some unusual gifts, and I'm going to take a guess that no one in the room here has gotten some of these next gifts that I'm going to share, some of these strange and unusual gifts that I have discovered that are out there, and they're great gift ideas for next year possibly. So we're going to look at some of these gifts. The first one is, do I push the...
It's down point, right?
Oh, wrong way. Of course, what could you do without zombie finger puppets? And I'm thinking, this would be a great thing to sort of break the ice in a board meeting or something, You just sort of show up and you shake, the president's hand or something, and you just, show up, and maybe you could ask if these could be 5 voting members. It could really sway the balance of the board. There's some zombie finger puppets. Then we have the inflatable toupee for those folks who, don't want to spend all that money on hair tonic or any procedures or anything. In about 5 or 10 seconds, you could blow this up and strap it on your head, and you're styling. You're looking really good. An inflatable toupee. For the pet lovers out there, a unicorn horn for your kitty. I'm sure it'll fit on a dog too. But, I know that, I love my cat. I have a cat, Molly. She's my precious, precious calico. I love her. And I can't wait till next year to actually get her this, and she's so chill. So this is for the pet lovers. Any pet lovers here? Any pet? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so what else do we have? There's this is for the office. Here's some crap sticky notes. Thought this would be fun. You could either classify it as boring crap, more crap, other crap, useless crap, total crap, or just crappy crap. But these are crap sticky notes. Or there's down on the bottom, cut the crap. That's good. And this for the faithful friends, and you might exchange these here, some Jesus Band-Aids. There's nothing like having the healing power of God right on that wound, right? There's even a free prize inside. I wonder if it's eternal life. And this next one is by far my favorite. And this is one that you can use in all of your circles, your work circles, your family circles, your friend circles. And it's some... How about a nice big pack of shut the hell up gum? 8 pieces of artificially flavored cinnamon gum. So anyway, we'll go back here. We'll see. Come on, where you at? Go back here to the beginning here. Anyway, the strange gifts that we might receive. So just keep those in mind for next year. I was recalling Christmas and some of the experiences that I've had with Christmas in my life. And I recall the first Christmas that I remember was the Christmas of 1969. And my uncle, I remember it for a number of reasons. It was so vivid. We had this silver Christmas tree. Remember those silver Christmas trees? And we had the color wheel that you could set underneath it. It was beautiful. It just really had this vivid, expression, and I just remember that Christmas tree so well. But I also remember that Christmas was one that my aunts and uncle had moved back to the area that I grew up in, and they were staying with us. And so we were experiencing Christmas with my cousins Joe and Denny, and another cousin that lived with us named Tommy. And so it was quite a house full. And I had an Uncle Tommy who was a prankster. And he just liked to stir the pot. He was one of those guys that just really liked to pick on us kids. And so on Christmas Eve, he decided he was going to write a note and put it on top of the Christmas tree to Santa that said, "Dear Santa, these kids have been bad this year. Please do not leave any presents." So that's at the age of 5 is when I suffered my first anxiety attack. Anyway, I was the littlest of all of the cousins, and I had to trust that my cousin Joe or my cousin Denny were going to do everything they could to get that note down. And so I remember several hours, we would sneak down the stairs, and the Christmas tree was sort of at the foot of the stairs, and so we would try to get to it while the parents weren't looking so we could get that note off the tree. And this went on, several attempts, and then they would chase us back up the stairs, and then of course Uncle Tommy would put the note back on the tree, and he was terrible. He just really was terrible. So finally we were chased upstairs and threatened that we better not get out of bed again, or we were all going to get a spanking. So that's how that Christmas Eve ended. And but anyway, the next morning we woke up, and of course there were an abundance of presents under the tree. And the interesting thing, though, about this Christmas is that even though this was the first Christmas that I consciously remember, I had a belief already in me that Santa was going to come. And as I reflected on this Christmas, I'm like, where did that belief come from? How did I already have that belief before I was consciously aware of that belief? I was in fear that I was not going to experience Christmas, and I had all of this anxiety about it, and I had, even at this young age, had no clue that I had developed a belief system already in something that I didn't see or I didn't know, but this was the first time I remembered it, and I really tried to think back, do I really remember a Christmas before this? And maybe vaguely, but just nothing so vivid. This was definitely the first Christmas that I fully remember the whole experience of. But yet, I already had that belief in me. How was it programmed in there? How was that belief planted in me? And why did I believe it? I believed wholeheartedly in Santa. And so I started thinking about this faith that I had in this source of Santa, and then I started thinking about faith itself and the beliefs that I had and the beliefs that I had acquired, and why do I believe them? Santa was this character whose character had evolved over time in many cultures, and it was interesting when my daughter was in Austria last year, she was able to share the experience of what Christmas was like over in Austria. It was quite different. They exchanged gifts like early in the month. They didn't exchange them on the 25th. And it's just all these different kinds of cultures. And so we have developed this idea of Christmas in this country and I started thinking about, okay, Santa being real and all of this, and how real is it, and what does it really mean? Well, even though we may or may not dispute the reality of Santa, what is really real is that Santa shows up in our lives, especially in retail. And it's estimated that Americans will spend $700 per person on Christmas, or a total of about $465 billion in this country is spent on Christmas. So whether we want to argue about the reality of Santa, the presence and the idea and the energy of Santa is very real, and it influences our life in such a way, and also a very monetary way. So I started thinking about, how does this relate to Jesus and his life and this Christian Christmas season? How does that come into play? And the truth is that whether we believe in Jesus or not, as an actual person, as an actual figure, if we look at him metaphysically, the truth is that the influence of Christianity is impossible to refute. If we look at the life of Paul, who was a missionary probably from around 50 AD to 70 AD, Paul was the one who was really credited by forwarding the message of Christianity throughout the world. And one of the tactical things that Paul did was he actually picked a lot of port cities to have churches in. And these port cities would have an influx of people from all throughout the world. And it gave them an opportunity to sort of cross-pollinate the idea of Christianity to other cultures. And it was able to spread that way. But the estimation at the end of Paul's life, there were only about 2,000 professed Christians in the world. That's staggering to me, because you would think that how did such a small group of people, something as small as the Catholic Church over here in Manhattan, they have 2,500 people that meet on a Sunday. Imagine just that many people over time were able to grow and influence the world. That's staggering to me. So this idea of faith in Jesus' life and his expression, even though some people may not believe in the actual physical being of Christ or Jesus, the effect of Christianity is impossible to refute. And that energy of the Christian faith is littered throughout our world, it's in our societies, it's in our laws, it's in the way we live, it's in our cultures, and it's in our customs. And it's evolved and re-evolved and re-evolved and re-evolved over the years to where we have different practices that we do. There's different sects of Christianity. I think the last count that I recall, there were close to about 1,000 different Protestant expressions of Christianity. And also you have the different expressions of the Catholic Church as well. But this is an energy of faith that has grown in us, that has been planted in us from the time we were born. I remember singing, "Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so," when I was a little kid. So I was programmed with this belief in me of this Christ. And here I am, and all of us are here in this room today because of what we believe. But not only what we believe, but what we don't believe. We, especially in this group, are here because we don't necessarily believe in the physical expression of Christianity as sort of, in some cases, force-fed to us as children. If you don't behave, you're going to go to... Exactly. I remember living in fear. I was in such fear as a kid. If I didn't behave, if I didn't say my prayers at night, if I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. If I didn't pray before I went to bed, I knew something bad was going to happen. And these kind of pre-programmed beliefs are forced into us. But what is our faith? You know, what do we believe, and what do we have faith in? And there's beliefs and there's faith, and And faith is something that's a constant. If we're thinking of faith, faith is something that we exercise whether we realize it or not. Faith is that energy that allows us to believe in something, whether it's good or whether it's bad. So my question in this season of Advent is, we're looking at the first energy of faith today, as we have experienced this living in the Christ or living as the Christ. How are we exercising our faith? What are we putting our faith in? How can we change that if we want or if we need to? So, faith to me, like I said, is a constant. And it was interesting. One of the ways that this sort of showed up in my life was about 5 or 6 years ago, when for some reason I had faith, and I had no idea why I had this faith or had this belief, that I was eventually going to lead the church in Iowa, even though I wasn't a certified minister through Unity. I don't know why this happened, but I just had this belief that for somehow, some way, something was going to come together to make this happen. And as I thought about that, I also thought about this church and remembered the sort of the fear that we had when moving into this facility, how we were sort of wondering how it was going to happen. And here we are 2.5 years later, living in expression of this Church of Unity, Church of Manhattan, in this facility. We just had a belief that somehow, some way, everything was going to work out. Everything was going to be all right. Even though we didn't see it, we felt it. So what are we feeling? How is our faith being exercised today? I think one of the strange ironies is that even people who are atheists, who they don't believe in Christianity, actually their faith is shaped by the fact they don't believe in something. So whatever you're believing, you're also not believing in something else. So it's irreversible. You can't have one without the other. What is faith? Well, the Bible tells us in Hebrews 11:1, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. The assurance of things hoped for. We just know it's going to happen. How many have ever had that experience when they just had that feeling inside that either something good or something bad was going to happen? Have any ideas or any experiences that, like, I just know that's going to happen. I just know he's going to do that. Or I just know this is going to, unfortunately, like I said, it's a constant. So it's good or bad, and why are we putting our energy toward bad? Well, I don't know. It's a question for us to reflect on. Fillmore had another definition of faith, and his definition is the perceiving power of mind to shape substance. Let's think about that for a minute. The perceiving power of mind to shape substance. If we look at the Fillmore's life and how Myrtle and even Charles were healed from their afflictions, Myrtle decided to perceive in her mind that her body was healthy and whole. How did she do that? Because she gave energy to the good health that was in her. She decided to focus on that good energy that was in her, and she decided that today that perceiving power of her energy was that she was seeing herself as whole, and she knew it without a shadow of a doubt that she was going to walk away from that affliction of tuberculosis. Charles Fillmore, interesting, toward the end of his life, I don't know if most of you knew that he had a withered leg. And he walked with a limp, and it was because he had polio as a child. But he started praying about his leg, and he started focusing on his leg. And actually, his leg, in the later parts of his life, started to grow. And he had complete faith that his leg was going to be the same length as his other leg as it continued to grow throughout the rest of his life. A funny thing, though, about Charles was that Charles actually believed that physically he was going to live forever. He believed that if you had pure faith, that you were going to be able to overcome all sicknesses and all afflictions, and you were going to be able to live beyond what normal life expectancy was. And he believed that he was going to live an eternal life. And toward the end of his life, about 3 weeks left to go in his life, he was very depressed because he realized that he was going to die, and he thought that he had lost his faith. He thought that he had failed. He thought he had done something wrong. But in a way, I think Charles' perception, although it was limited in the physical, here we are. If he died in 1948, we're here almost 70 years later, and his words are still alive. So did Charles live forever? Spiritually, yes. He will live forever. Spiritually, we will all live forever. It's impossible not to if we've touched another human life. We may have influenced somebody's thinking along the way. E.B. Weeks, the guy who inspired Myrtle Fillmore, who was somebody who was really sort of an outcast in the Christian Science church, who was sent out to give lessons because he was considered a troublemaker. And he happened upon a room where Myrtle Fillmore was sitting one day, and he gave the lesson about your body does not inherit sickness. He probably didn't think twice about those words. But yet those words have not only influenced Myrtle, but they've influenced millions of people who have prescribed to her faith. How many words have we spoken? How many things have we done in our life that have touched another life, that have touched another life, that have touched another life? We, too, will live forever in some way, shape, or form. Some of us might have a greater expression, be more popular in pop culture, or be more popular in just our circles, but we all, no matter who we are, will touch others, and we will all be part of this growing human consciousness of living forever. We have that faith. So we are shaping substance. But what are we shaping in our own lives? How are we exercising our faith? And how can we change it if we are basing our fears and our thoughts around fear of what's going to happen? How much worry was wasted if we would have said 2.5 years ago, we're still going to be in this facility and everything's going to be A-okay? How many people really believe that? How many people had those fears and those doubts and those worries? And how did we overcome it? Well, one step at a time. Every time there was a challenge, something happened. Things came together in a way, and we had a faith and a belief that everything would work out in the right and perfect way. So how can we change our existence? Well, I think the first thing is when we're thinking about faith and how we want to change our lives. So if there's a personal situation, so right now in your own minds, I want you to think about the challenges that you're having and the things that you're worried about. I want you to pull them into your mind right now. And in your own way and in your own time and beyond the service, I want you to start by stating your desired outcome. Stating your desired outcome. And what's important also is when you state that desired outcome, it's important that you follow it with this statement: this or something better. This or something better. The This reminded me of a story that my father told me. My father was a Marine, my real father, not my stepfather. My real father was a Marine, and he was stationed at Vietnam. And he had a real desire to go and be in helicopters. And so he would volunteer for helicopters. And finally, this opportunity came up, and it was between him and another guy. And my dad, being sort of the kind person that he was, he said, I'm going to be here in Vietnam a little bit longer than you. Go ahead and take this billet, and I'll take the next one. Well, 2 weeks later, this man who took that position was shot down and was killed. I was that close to not having a real father in my life. This or something better. We never know what is the right thing for us. My dad was probably disappointed that he wasn't on that helicopter, but I guarantee you 3 weeks later he wasn't. He was happy to be alive. So we never know. We may want something. So it's very important. We state our desired outcome, but we follow it by saying this or something better. So after stating our desired outcome, we start envisioning ourselves in that role or in that outcome, whatever it may be. And this is where our meditation becomes a great tool for us. Just as Myrtle was able to meditate on her perfect and expanding health, we are able to see ourselves in that role or in that way. We are able to change our faith. This or something better. Seeing ourselves in this way. When you begin to feel that desired result, there is nothing that will keep that outcome from you. The last thing to do in this whole exercise is then affirm the highest and best for yourself and for all others concerned or affected by this outcome. The highest and best for yourself for all those others affected by this outcome. Jesus said if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And we can surmise that with Jesus' words, who taught in parables, what was he really saying there? He was saying that even though these obstacles are great and we may not see how to get past that mountain, that if we have faith, that those barriers will be removed. But we have to see past what is in front of us. We have to be able to begin to create with our thoughts the world in which we desire to live. So as Christians, we find it sometimes that we're at odds with the presence of God in our lives, but we're never disconnected from God. We're always connected to Source. And so allow this to be one of the foundations of your faith, that faith is a constant. We are always connected to Source. And we move forward in our life with this energy, knowing that we each are the Christ. And in this season of Advent, when we're focusing on the qualities of Christianity, we are changing the world through our faith, through our peace, through our love, through our joy, expressing the Christ that is us, expressing and developing our faith with each and every thought, with each and every word. So with those ideas, let's take this into a meditation.